Hey guys, tonight we drift back in time to a place where conversation is optional. Sandals make the only noise, and your most pressing decision is whether or not to watch a koi fish swim in slow, existential circles. We're heading into the quiet heart of Edo-period Japan, where tea gardens whisper more than they speak, and even the wind seems to follow protocol. Imagine a cool evening settling over a still landscape. The sun has just dipped low enough to turn everything that soft amber you can't quite capture on your phone. You arrive at a weathered wooden gate. It creaks as you push it not in a spooky way, but more like the gate itself is politely stretching after a long nap. Tall bamboo leans in around you, rustling gossip to each other in a language you'll never quite understand. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As you step past the gate, the sound of the city behind you dissolves like sugar into warm water. What's left is only the crunch of your sandals on earth and the occasional call of a bird that sounds like it's also on its way to bed. A very calm or very slow gardener shuffles past, carrying a clay watering jug. He doesn't speak, he just nods. And around here, that's basically a full conversation ahead. Tucked between deliberately unkempt bushes and rocks that seem strategically misplaced, you see the tea house, small, wooden, and roofed with straw. It looks less like a building and more like the garden's shy sibling. A single paper lantern sways on the veranda, glowing with all the energy of a drowsy sigh. One thing's certain, this place has never seen a fluorescent bulb. Historically, the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, was a time of peace, isolation, and deep, slightly obsessive introspection in Japan. With the country mostly closed off to outside influences, internal culture got very specific. Everything from clothing to rock placement followed strict forms. Even how you walked through a garden had a right way. The path is judging you. You pass a flowering camellia bush that seems to bloom only on the side you're walking past. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the gardener really is that good. He did give off suspiciously zen vibes. The scent in the air changes wet, moss, distant, charcoal, something floral you can't quite name but now want in candle form. Historians still debate whether Edo-period tea gardens were truly public, or more like introvert-exclusive clubs for the spiritually overprepared. Some argue that even the gardeners were chosen not just for their pruning skills, but for their ability to go years without speaking. A rare giftess, especially on the internet. You approach the threshold of the tea house. To enter, you must bow. The doorframe is intentionally low, designed to force humility, at least to keep sword-swinging samurai from charging in full speed. Priorities, you know. You stoop slightly and feel the texture of woven tatami mats under your feet. The air inside is cooler, somehow, like the room has been quietly meditating for hours, waiting for you inside. Everything is so simple, it makes your apartment look like a cluttered disaster. A black iron kettle rests over a sunken hearth. Single white flower leans slightly in a ceramic vase, arranged just wrong enough to be deeply right. A hanging scroll displays one bold kanji, painted with more white space than ink. It probably says tea, or stillness, or please unplug your router and try again. You don't read kanji, and it honestly doesn't matter. You sit, or try to. Your legs attempt the cross-legged position, but they are not impressed by the concept. It's okay. Discomfort is part of the experience. It's like your knees are bowing too. Outside, a frog lands with a moist plop on a stone. That one small sound feels almost engineered for your ears. You look around and notice something peculiar. No one is in a hurry. The host hasn't even arrived yet, and still, it already feels like the ceremony has begun, maybe from the moment you touched the gate, or maybe when you hit play on this video. Here's a quirky historical footnote. Some of the earliest tea masters actually trained Zen monks to drink tea to stay awake during long meditation sessions. Ironically, you're here to do the exact opposite, but that's fine. Even monks eventually nod off, probably with excellent posture. The sky outside begins to shift deeper into dusk. Through the shoshi screen windows, the garden becomes a silhouette, branches, stones, and swaying bamboo reduced to soft outlines. The crickets tune up. One clears its throat. Another politely chirps in C minor. The world is dimming with you. Step by gentle step, you exhale. Not for any dramatic reason. It just happens. And in this place, that's kind of everything. Asterisk. You're still sitting there, legs trying their best to resemble something vaguely meditative. When you hear a subtle sound, the sliding door creaks open. It's not dramatic, more like the room letting out a long-held breath. The tea host steps in without looking at you, because this isn't a performance. It's more like a weather pattern, predictable, calm, and quietly necessary. She's dressed in muted gray and soft earth tones, the kind of color palette that would make a minimalist influencer weep with envy. Her footsteps make no sound. Nong. It's like her feet hover 2 millimeters above the mat, held aloft by decades of inherited etiquette and a sheer refusal to be noisy. The host doesn't greet you exactly. She bows slightly, a motion that seems more for the room than for you, and then begins preparing the tea. Every movement is deliberate. The way she folds the cloth, lifts the ladle, and swirls the water, it's part ritual, part muscle memory, part spiritual origami. You watch, and for a moment forget you ever owned a phone. Tea in the Edo period wasn't just a drink. It was a way to quiet the brain. Samurai drank it before duels. Poets sipped it before writing verses about clouds. Farmers drank it after a long day of pretending to understand those poems. Even the shogun himself had tea ceremonies to unwind from the heavy burden of managing an isolationist empire with a flair for elaborate hairstyles. There's something disarming about how little happens in a tea ceremony. No one talks. No one checks the time. Nothing explodes. The host simply scoops bright green matcha into a bowl, pours water that is precisely, not coincidentally, 80 degrees Celsius, and whisks it in small, circular motions. The foam rises like a cloud on a lake, silent and steady. The bowl is handed to you with both hands. You receive it the same way, because not doing so feels like you disrupt the universe's gravitational field. The ceramic is warm against your palms. You turn it slightly, always clockwise, take a sip. It's bitter, not in a bad way. More like how jazz is technically music, even if your taste buds are confused at first. The bitterness sharpens your focus for a second and then fades, replaced by something vegetal and earthy. The kind of flavor that makes you question whether you've ever really tasted green before. Outside, the bamboo shifts again. The wind has changed directions. Or maybe it hasn't, and you've just finally noticed. There's a faint clinking sound. The gardener now gently stacking rocks in a way that no modern job description can justify. But here, it matters. One stone, slightly out of place, would change the entire flow of the garden, or at least disappoint someone's great tea master. A widely known fact is that tea ceremonies were heavily influenced by Zen Buddhism, with an emphasis on mindfulness, impermanence, and subtle beauty. Every leaf, bowl, and gesture says, "This moment matters," which sounds nice in theory until you spill hot tea on your own sleeve. You don't, but you could. And that too would be part of the ceremony. A lesser-known curiosity. During the height of the Edo period, tea utensils were often named, revered, and passed down like sacred relics. Some had full biographies, personality traits, and reputations. There was, no joke, a ladle once described as stoic, yet unassuming. A ladle. You're now wondering if your coffee mug deserves a name. It doesn't, but still. The host sits back, her hands resting lightly on her lap. She doesn't ask questions. She doesn't check how you liked the tea. You're not here to rate the service. You're here to sit with your thoughts, like two awkward roommates who have finally stopped trying to impress each other. Historians still discuss whether the tea ceremony was more about aesthetics or ethics. Was it about beauty, or was it training in humility disguised as art? Some argue that it was a rebellion against lavish displays of power. Others believe it was just an excuse to sit quietly in a very curated shed. Either way, you feel calmer, which is more than you can say for your group chats. The sky darkens further. A paper lantern outside flickers slightly, not like it's struggling, but like it's winking. You realize that it's been nearly an hour and nothing of importance has happened. No emails, no deadlines, no trending topics, just the sound of water cooling, leaves breathing, and your own heartbeat slowing to a rhythm usually reserved for iguanas. You set the bowl down gently, not because you're told to, but because slamming it feels unthinkable. A cicada starts, up in the distance. It's late to the party, but no one minds. The host bows again, just slightly, and disappears behind the screen as quietly as she arrived. It's not an ending. It's just you stay seated for a few moments longer, not because you have to, but because getting up now would be louder than staying still. There's a word in Japanese, ma. It means the space between things, the silence that makes the sound matter. Pause that gives meaning to the motion. Right now, you are fully in the ma, and it's lovely. You eventually stand slowly, like you've just remembered that time is a real thing. Your knees creak a bit in protest, but they're getting used to the idea. You bow once more at the door, though no one's watching. It just feels right. The garden waits for you, bathed now in a deep twilight, so soft it might as well be velvet. The path winds ahead, barely lit by lanterns nestled among the rocks. Some of them flicker, not because fire has moods too. You take each step carefully, not because you have to, but because the garden seems to request it. Loud footsteps here would feel like shouting in a library built by moss. You notice things now you didn't before. A single stone with a perfectly rounded top. The way the gravel has been raked into spirals around the base of a pine. A tree that leans slightly, but only because it's older than most governments. You don't know if it's been trained to grow that way, or if it just gave up long ago and decided to rest mid-gesture. Either way, it's beautiful. Gardens during the Edo period weren't just scenery. They were maps for the soul, laid out with deliberate asymmetry to mimic nature, yet arranged so meticulously that nature itself might have taken notes. These were places for tea, yes, but also for poetry, meditation, and the occasional existential stroll after realizing your robe doesn't have pockets. You pass a small stone basin low to the ground, filled with cool, clear water. A bamboo pipe drips steadily into it, one drop at a time. The sound is repetitive, rhythmic, and oddly personal, like it's whispering directly to your spine. These are sukubai, placed so visitors could purify their hands and mouths before entering a sacred space. You don't need to use it now, but still you find yourself watching the water ripple out, hypnotized by how something so small can seem so eternal. Here's a fun, strange fact. Many Edo-period gardens were designed to be viewed from one specific angle, not because they didn't look good from other spots, but because perfection was never the point. The goal was to experience incompleteness, an aesthetic called wabi-sabi. It's that feeling you get when your favorite mug has a tiny crack and somehow you love it more. Or when your blanket has holes but it smells like sleep. You take a seat on a flat rock near a patch of tall grasses. They sway gently, moved by a breeze so subtle you only know it's there because your sleeve just nudged your wrist. Somewhere behind you, a frog croaks. Not urgently, coz, more like he's just letting the night know he's still around. Historians still discuss whether Edo gardens were meant to be symbols of power or of peace. Some scholars point to the way powerful samurai hosted garden viewings as a kind of social theater. Others argue that these spaces were the only places where hierarchy dissolved, and everyone just became someone who didn't step on the moss. There's no consensus, and frankly, the moss doesn't care. You lean back slightly, letting your weight rest against the warm, immovable stone. The world seems paused. You can almost hear your own thoughts filing themselves neatly away, one by one, like monks shelving scrolls in a temple library. Then comes a sound, a low wooden clack from deeper in the garden. You know this one. It's the Shishodoshitha, bamboo deer scarer. A horizontal bamboo pipe fills with water, tips, and strikes a rock with a hollow thunk before bouncing back to repeat the cycle. Originally meant to frighten animals away from crops, it now serves only to remind you that time is passing, drop by drop, thunk by thunk. It's a strangely grounding sound, one that slices through the night with all the drama of a well-timed sigh. It doesn't interrupt your peace, defines it. and you start to feel like the entire garden is breathing with you, syncing its rhythm to your calm. A scholarly aside, some argue the Shishodoshi wasn't just for animals. Some theories suggest it was designed to startle people, to shake them out of distracted thoughts and bring them back to the present. A bamboo mindfulness gong, if you will. Whether or not that's true, you kind of hope it is. Oh God, please fucking go, God. It makes the thunk feel like a helpful nudge from a very polite ghost. You rise again, legs now slightly more cooperative. The path ahead is narrower, framed by tall grasses and cedar trunks. Somewhere, water trickles. Somewhere else, a night bird calls once and then goes back to whatever dreams birds have, probably flying. Or bread. Up ahead, another gate appears. This one smaller, simpler, and more weathered. Beyond it, the path splits into two, then curves out of sight. You know what's on the other side doesn't matter. What matters is the pause, this space. Between one moment and the next dot, you linger. Because this is the kind of night that asks you to. You follow the narrower path now, letting it lead you into a part of the garden that feels even quieter that's possible. The gravel here is finer, almost sandy, and your steps make the faintest of crunches. It sounds like a whisper wrapped in wool. Overhead, the branches of a maple stretch like old hands, fingers crooked in permanent gestures, filtering the lantern light into a soft, golden lattice on the ground. This is the inner garden, or nakaniwa, a space within a space. A garden inside a garden. In Edo-period design, this was where serenity reached its final form. A secluded area, invisible from the street, where every rock, leaf, and shadow was in deliberate conversation with each other. It's the architectural equivalent of whispering, a secret to yourself. You pause near a stone lantern, an ancient one, its surface mottled with moss and time. Its little window glows faintly from a candle placed inside earlier by someone who, you assume, moves through life with monk-like efficiency, and a calendar written in haiku. The flame flickers as if acknowledging your presence. You nod back, just in case that's polite. The air smells faintly of damp stone and pine needles. It's a scent that feels like memory, even if you've never smelled it before. A breeze moves through the bushes, rustling them like an old silk curtain. Somewhere, a tiny insect clicks a single sound, then silence, is humming to itself in a key just below your hearing range. It was common in Edo-period estates for the inner garden to act as a kind of psychological buffer. The outer walls kept out the noise of the world, but it was the nakaniwa that kept out the noise inside your head. Samurai, artisans, scholars, all of them would step into spaces like this and, at least temporarily, forget to worry about taxes or poetry competitions or whether someone else was wearing a slightly more ceremonial kimono. You spot a wooden bench, half sunken into the ground, like it's been waiting here for centuries for someone with your exact posture. You sit. It creaks, but in a friendly way, more of a stretch than a protest. From here, the angle of the garden reveals something you hadn't noticed before. A small stone pagoda tucked behind a stand of bamboo. It's maybe a foot tall, completely useless, absolutely perfect. The Edo elite used to commission these kinds of garden sculptures not for religious purposes, but as aesthetic punctuation marks, a visual sigh. This one might symbolize Mount Fuji, or just be a very charming piece of granite. Either way, it's doing its job. You feel your thoughts slow down like a paper boat in a shallow stream. Here's a lesser-known detail. Edo gardens were often designed with borrowed scenery or shake. This meant intentionally framing distant elements, forests, even clouds, as part of the garden's composition. Right now, if you tilt your head just so, you can see the moon caught perfectly between the roof lines of two garden sheds. It feels accidental. It absolutely isn't. Historians still debate whether the Nakaniwa meant more for aesthetic refinement or emotional regulation. Some say it was the garden equivalent of a sensory deprivation tank. Others believe it was simply another flexa, sign of wealth measured in square meters of curated silence. Either way, you're benefiting from it, even if you're just an accidental time traveler with sore knees. Another soft clack from a distant shishiodoshi. You count the seconds until the next one, 86. This one's a slower model, probably older. Or maybe it just doesn't believe in rushing. Respect. A moment later, a cat appears. No sound, no announcement, just ... a cat. Black, with a white mark on its face that vaguely resembles the kanji for quiet. It stops several feet from you, makes eye contact like it's checking to see if you're up to something, then calmly curls into a loaf on the stone path. You're not sure if it lives here or if it's just passing through on a long night shift. You hope it stays. Gots, as it happens, were beloved in Edo-period Japan. They were thought to protect libraries and temples from mice, and many households had special cat corridors built into their wooden walls. They even showed up in ukiyo-e prints, often more dignified than the humans. There's no academic debate about this. Cats have always had it figured out. The cat closes its eyes. You do the same. The world, for a few slow heartbeats, contains only three things: the cool wood beneath you, the slow breathing of a garden at night, and the sound of nothing happening very carefully. The cat is gone. At some point between one blink and the next, it must have slipped away silent as a myth, graceful as someone who's late but pretending they're not. You smile a little because, of course, it did. Gardens like this are made of entrances and exits that don't require doors. You rise again, not because you're done resting, but because the garden seems to be gently nudging you forward. The path now becomes less defined. Stones here are placed irregularly, one square, one round, one like a wedge of oddly philosophical cheese. You step carefully, placing your feet where others once placed theirs, maybe hundreds of years ago, maybe this morning. That's the fun part. You don't know. In the Edo period. These stepping stones, Stobyish, weren't laid out for efficiency. No one was in a hurry. Their purpose was mindfulness. You can't stride across them. You have to pause, look, and then commit. It's like the world slowing you down, one foot at a time. You find yourself now walking beside a narrow stream, barely wider than your arm. The water moves like a secret slow, with little detours around moss-covered rocks. Tiny fish dart beneath the surface. You count 3, then lose track because one of them seems to be particularly judgmental. Streams in Japanese gardens were metaphors for life itself, ever moving. Sometimes shallow, occasionally deep, always reflective if you stopped and looked. This one winds under a little wooden bridge that serves no real structural purpose except to remind you that crossing things can be gentle. You stop on the bridge. It's barely wide enough for you and your thoughts. The railing is smooth, weathered. By years of hands resting, there may be wondering, maybe plotting, maybe just stalling before the next cup of tea. From here, you see the garden from yet another angle. Everything looks familiar, but shifted, like meeting a friend in a dream version of your hometown. Over on the left, a cluster of azaleas are just beginning to bloom. Their petals are delicate, like paper someone gave up folding halfway into an origami crane. You breathe in the scent, powdery, like a memory of something you've never eaten. Maybe mochi. Maybe laundry left to dry in spring air. And then you hear it, the quiet clatter of wooden sandals. Somewhere deeper in the garden, someone else walks. You don't see them. You don't need to. The sound of geta on stone is unmistakable sharp, hollow, and entirely non-threatening. Just the sound of someone else existing politely nearby. There's a word for this, aware. Not in the ICU sense, but the Japanese concept of gentle sadness at the impermanence of things. The way you feel when you realize the lanterns will eventually go out, or that the blooming azaleas will fall, or that the bridge you're standing on will one day be replaced or worse, preserved in a museum where no one can walk on it. Historians still argue about the balance between Zen Buddhism and Shintoism in Edo garden design. Some say the spiritual side was dominant, each feature a nod to impermanence and inner peace. Others suggest it was more about aesthetic bragging right, an elite way of saying, my rocks are older than your rocks. The truth probably lies, as always, in the shadowy space between intention and interpretation. You descend the bridge and follow the stream's edge, noting how its sound changes with each bend. More chatter here, a whisper there, then silence as it flows under a low arch of stone. Every few steps, a new scent greets you, earth. Pine, the faint tang of iron from the water itself. It's like the garden is rotating through its perfume collection, just to see what you notice ahead. You spot something that doesn't quite fit. It's a bench, simple, modern, maybe added in the last decade. Its lines are clean, its wood untreated, and there's a small plaque on one end. You sit down anyway, because contrast can be beautiful too. The plaque reads, rest. Not every moment needs purpose. You chuckle softly. That's exactly the kind of wisdom a garden like this would offer you. Not loudly, not urgently, just when you're ready to hear it. Somewhere in the distance, another bamboo shiseodoshi completes its cycle. This one's a bit out of rhythm. Its clack comes 2 seconds later than expected, like it's on jazz time. The bench is surprisingly comfortable. You lean back, your shoulders loosen. A breeze passes over the stream and lifts a few loose petals into the air. They hover for a moment, then drift downward, landing on the water's surface and continuing downstream like tiny pink boats with no deadlines. You think about staying here. You also think about moving on. Either way, the garden will still be here, waiting, watching, gently reshaping itself every time someone pays attention. You rise from the bench with a sigh that feels almost ceremonial, a quiet acknowledgement that rest is sometimes its own kind of journey. The garden seems to stretch and yawn as you move, the plants and stones settling back into their timeless positions, like actors preparing for the next scene in an endless play. Ahead, the path curves gently toward a cluster of plum trees, their branches heavy with blossoms so pale they almost glow in the moonlight. You're reminded of haikus, those tiny poems packed with big feelings, how the Japanese have long found beauty in fleeting things, like the soft fall of petals or the gentle drip of rain. As you walk beneath the canopy, the sweet scent of the plum blossoms fills the air, wrapping around you like a memory you haven't lived yet. It's calming and a little bittersweet, as if nature itself is reminding you that moments like these don't last forever. You breathe deeply, letting the scent anchor you to the present alongside the trees. You spot a small wooden structure, an open-air pavilion designed for tea ceremonies. Its design is simple but elegant, built low to the ground with wooden beams and paper walls that let in the soft moonlight. You imagine a group of people sitting here centuries ago, sharing quiet conversation and bitter tea while the world outside stayed loud and chaotic. There's something oddly comforting about the idea that people have been using this same kind of space for hundreds of years to slow down, to savor small moments, and to find peace amid uncertainty. You feel a kinship with them, even if they never knew your name. A peculiar detail catches your eye. Carved into one of the pavilion's beams is a small image of a fox. In Japanese folklore, foxes or kitsune are tricksters, but also messengers of the gods. Their presence in gardens is a gentle reminder that even in the calmest places, a little mischief might be lurking just out of sight. You pause for a moment to appreciate the craftsmanship, the way the wood grain flows, like a river frozen in time, the subtle imperfections that make everything feel alive rather than manufactured. This pavilion isn't just a place, it's a story carved into timber and paper. Historians debate the influence of tea ceremonies on garden design, some suggesting that the rituals directly shaped how spaces like these were built to encourage mindfulness and respect. Others argue the relationship was more reciprocal. Gardens inspired the ceremonies as much as the ceremonies inspired the gardens. You think both are probably true, and that the dance between them is part of what makes Edo gardens feel so alive, even when completely still. Nearby, the soft murmur of water guides you to a small stone basin used for washing hands before the tea ceremony. You dip your fingers into the cool water, feeling the temperature settle over your skin like a quiet promise. The water glistens under the lantern light, reflecting tiny sparks that look like stars captured in a bold dot. As you step back, you catch the faintest rustling from the bush, perhaps a nightingale or a cricket. The sounds of the garden at night are a delicate symphony composed of small, almost imperceptible notes that only reveal themselves when you truly listen. You settle yourself comfortably within the pavilion, imagining the subtle clink of porcelain teacups and the hushed whispers of guests sharing quiet stories. The night outside feels distant here, softened by the paper walls and the gentle flicker of candlelight. You feel yourself drifting, slowly letting the rhythm of the garden lull your thoughts into a softer, slower place. This is a space where time folds back on itself, where past and present blend seamlessly like a well-steeped cup of tea. And with that, you begin to understand why these silent gardens were so cherished, not for their grandeur or complexity, but for their ability to hold a moment of stillness in a world that never stops moving. You step out from the pavilion and back onto the winding path, your footsteps muffled by a thick carpet of moss that cushions each step. The air feels cooler here, like the garden itself is breathing deeply, settling into a slower rhythm as the night wears on. You start to notice details you might have missed before: the way a single dewdrop clings to a leaf, trembling like a tiny crystal bell, or how the bark of an ancient cedar seems to pulse with quiet energy. This garden isn't just a collection of plants and stones. It's a living poem, written in the language of shadows and light. As you walk, you feel like a part of that poem, a line winding gently through the verses. Up ahead, you spot a curious feature: a small, roughly hewn stone basin balanced on 3 legs, standing alone like a forgotten relic. This is a sukubai, a basin traditionally used for ritual purification before entering a tea ceremony. You lean over and dip your hands into the cold water, feeling the smoothness of the stones beneath your fingertips. The chill wakes you up just enough to remind you that you're still very much here. In this quiet world of night and moss and moonlight, sukubai basins are often accompanied by poetic inscriptions carved into the surrounding stones, meant to remind the user of humility and simplicity. You imagine the Edo-period tea master who might have paused here, contemplating the meaning of the characters, perhaps wondering if the next guest would truly understand the message or simply appreciate the cool water on a hot day. There's a subtle humor in the idea that these basins are both practical and philosophical, much like the garden itself. You think of how modern life often separates function from meaning, whereas here, the two are intertwined like branches on a tree. The path continues, curving gently around a patch of ferns that rustle softly in the night breeze. You brush your fingers against their delicate fronds, feeling the contrast between their softness and the firmness of the stones underfoot. It's a tactile reminder that this garden was designed for the senses, not just sight, but touch, sound, and even smell. You catch a faint scent of incense drifting through the air, subtle and calming. Someone must have lit a small burner somewhere nearby, adding a layer of fragrant warmth to the cool night. It's almost as if the garden itself is breathing a slow, measured exhale. Historians debate whether incense was a staple in Edo gardens or a later addition influenced by Buddhist temple practices. Some argue it was central to the garden experience, creating a multi-sensory sanctuary. Others think it was reserved for special occasions or private moments. Either way, you appreciate the way it deepens the atmosphere, making the night feel even more intimate. As you continue walking, you come upon a small wooden gate, partially open, as if inviting you to pass through. Beyond it lies a bamboo grove, the stalks tall and slender, swaying gently like a chorus of green whispers. You step inside, the sound of your footsteps absorbed by the soft earth, and you feel a sense of transition, crossing from one world to another. The bamboo grove is quiet, save for the occasional creak as the stalks rub against each other. The shadows here play tricks, creating shifting patterns that make you feel like you're moving through a living, breathing maze. It's both peaceful and slightly mysterious, an invitation to lose yourself, if only for a little while. You recall that bamboo groves were prized in Edo gardens for their symbolism of resilience and flexibility. Their strength comes not from rigidity, but from their ability to bend without breaking. An important lesson, perhaps for anyone wandering through life's unpredictable paths. The moonlight filters through the leaves, casting long, slender shadows that dance softly across the ground. You pause and close your eyes, letting the gentle sway of the bamboo calm your thoughts. It's a moment of perfect stillness, held in place by the garden's gentle embrace. You leave the bamboo grove with a lingering sense of calm, your footsteps now leading you toward an area where the garden seems to open up wide and welcoming, like the calm after a soft rain. The path here is lined with low shrubs, their leaves shimmering faintly under the moonlight, as if dusted with a whisper of silver dot. Just ahead, you notice a small pond, its surface as smooth as glass, perfectly reflecting the stars scattered across the night sky. You stop at the water's edge, the silence here deep and soothing. The pond is home to koi, fish-bright, graceful swimmers that move through the water with an effortless elegance. You watch as a single koi glides past, its scales catching the faint light like a living jewel. It pauses near the surface, creating gentle ripples that spread outward, distorting the reflected constellations. It feels like the pond is a tiny universe, and you just a quiet observer. Caught between worlds, in Edo gardens, koi ponds were more than decorative features. They symbolized perseverance and strength, qualities admired in samurai and commoners alike. Watching their steady movements can feel like a meditation, a reminder that life moves forward even when you stand still. Nearby, a small wooden lantern casts a warm, flickering glow over the water. Its light dances gently on the pond's surface, mingling with the shadows to create a scene that feels both ancient and timeless. You're struck by how something so simpler lantern pond can inspire such profound peace. You hear a faint splash and turn just in time to see a tiny frog leap from a lily pad. It lands with barely a sound, then pauses, blinking slowly as if it too is taking in the quiet beauty of the garden. You smile, appreciating the company of these small, unassuming creatures. The plants surrounding the pond include irises and water lilies. Their petals soft and delicate, adding bursts of color even in the muted night. The garden's caretakers have tended this space carefully, understanding that balance and harmony come from attention to detail. Historians debate whether koi were originally brought to Japan from China during the Edo period or earlier. Some suggest they were bred specifically for their vibrant colors in this era, while others think their presence in gardens predates the samurai's rise. Regardless, their quiet grace has become inseparable from Japanese garden aesthetics. You settle on a nearby stone bench, feeling the coolness seep through your clothing, a gentle reminder of the night's embrace. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds, the soft ripple of water, the distant rustle of leaves, the occasional frog's call wash over you like a lullaby. You realize that in this garden, every element is a note in a slow, peaceful symphony. Each stone, plant, and creature contributes to the feeling of gentle stillness, inviting you to slow your own breath and step lightly into a softer state of being as you open your eyes. The lantern's light flickers once more, and you feel an unexpected gratitude for this quiet corner of the world, a place where time moves at its own pace. You stand from the stone bench, the cool night air brushing against your skin like a soft whisper. The garden stretches out before you, an intricate patchwork of paths, plants, and stones, all woven together with a deliberate care that seems almost sacred. Your footsteps guide you now toward a part of the garden that feels older, quieter, where the history seems to settle like dust on ancient wood. As you approach, you notice a humble wooden bridge arching gently over a narrow stream. The wood is worn smooth by countless footsteps, its surface polished by time and weather. You step onto the bridge and pause, looking down into the clear water below. Tiny fish dart beneath the surface, their movements slow and purposeful, like the garden itself breathing beneath your feet. The stream murmurs softly, a gentle soundtrack that blends with the distant rustling of leaves and the occasional croak of a frog. It's the kind of sound that fills the space around you without demanding attention, background music for your wandering thoughts. Bridges in Edo gardens weren't just practical crossings. They symbolized transitions between places, states of mind, or even phases of life. You imagine those who walked this path centuries ago, crossing from one part of the garden to another, perhaps moving from chaos toward calm, or from the everyday toward the sacred. There is a delicate balance here between the natural and the crafted, the wild and the ordered. The stream's gentle flow reminds you that life moves forward, always, even in the quietest places. You lean on the railing for a moment, feeling the smooth grain of the wood beneath your fingertips. You notice a small carving, a subtle mark left by a long-ago visitor. Maybe a craftsman or a gardener. It's a tiny reminder that many hands have touched this garden, shaping it with care and respect. The path on the other side of the bridge leads you into a shaded grove of maples, their leaves whispering softly in the night breeze. You can almost hear the garden breathing, hear the gentle inhalation and exhalation of centuries of care in autumn. These maples would burst into vibrant shades of red and orange, a fiery display that contrasts with the garden's usual quiet greens and browns. But tonight, under the moonlight, the leaves are a dark silhouette against the sky, mysterious and calm. You recall that Japanese garden design often embraces impermanence, the idea that beauty lies in change and decay as much as in growth. Fleeting colors of the maple leaves remind you that even the most brilliant moments eventually fade, making room for new ones. A soft chuckle escapes you as you think about how you're probably one of the only people these days who finds a garden. Stroll in near silence, a thrilling adventure. You imagine someone from the Edo period watching you, wondering why anyone would need an app or a playlist to appreciate a night like this. Historians still debate whether the original builders of Edo gardens intended them primarily for contemplation or for social gatherings. Some believe these spaces were quiet retreats, while others suggest they were lively settings for poetry readings and tea ceremonies. Maybe both are true because peace doesn't have to mean loneliness. You follow the path as it curves away. From the maples, the soft crunch of fallen leaves underfoot blending with the faint trickle of the stream you crossed moments ago. You feel grounded, like a thread woven into a fabric much larger and older than yourself, as you continue your slow, deliberate walk. The garden seems to embrace you, a silent companion on this gentle night journey. You keep walking, the garden unfolding around you like a quiet story told in whispers. The path narrows now, bordered by delicate moss and clusters of wildflowers that nod gently in the night breeze. Your fingers brush lightly over the soft greenery, feeling the contrast between the smooth leaves and the rough bark of nearby trees. Ahead, you spot a small stone lantern, its carved surface weathered by time. The lantern is unlit tonight, but you can imagine how, during a festival or a special tea ceremony, it would glow warmly, casting dancing shadows that bring the garden to life after dark. The thought is comforting, a reminder that light and dark both have their places in this serene world. Stone lanterns, or TR, have been a staple in Japanese gardens since the Edo period, serving both practical and symbolic roles. Some say they guide visitors through the garden's physical and spiritual paths, lighting the way to tranquility. Others think they represent the fleeting nature of life, their flames flickering but never lasting forever. You kneel briefly to inspect the lantern's base, where tiny carvings of waves and clouds are etched in painstaking detail. It's a reminder of how nature itself was the true artist behind these gardens, with human hands only shaping the canvas. As you rise, a gentle breeze stirs, carrying with it the faint, sweet scent of cherry blossoms, though it's not the season for them. It's a subtle trick of the garden, or perhaps your imagination blending with memory. The ephemeral beauty of cherry blossoms is a favorite theme in Edo culture, symbolizing both the joy and the sadness of fleeting moments. Nearby, you hear the soft buzz of insects, a quiet chorus that fills the space between the rustling leaves and the gentle footsteps on the stone path. You realize that these small creatures are part of the garden's ecosystem, living in harmony with the carefully tended plants and stones. There's a story about how some Edo gardeners would encourage insects like dragonflies and butterflies, believing they brought good luck and vitality. You smile at the thought of ancient gardeners strategizing about bug populations, kind of like a very old version of pest control, though probably less chemical and more Zen. Historians debate the extent to which Edo gardens were intentionally designed as natural habitats. Some suggest that the balance between wildness and control was a key principle, while others argue that nature's unpredictability was embraced rather than tamed. Either way, you appreciate the delicate harmony you feel as you continue your walk. The path curves once more, leading you to a small clearing where a single ancient pine tree stands sentinel. Its twisted branches reach skyward like hands in prayer, silhouetted against the dark velvet sky. You pause, feeling the tree's quiet strength, a symbol of endurance and patience. You run your fingers along the rough bark, noticing the grooves and scars that tell stories of countless seasons. The pine tree's resilience reminds you that, like the garden itself, life is a series of slow, steady growth and renewal. With a final glance at the pine, you step forward, ready to continue your gentle journey through this timeless place. You follow the winding path away from the ancient pine, the sound of your footsteps softened by a thick carpet of fallen leaves. The garden feels increasingly intimate now, as if you're slipping into a secret corner of Edo's past, where time slows and the world outside fades into a distant hum ahead. You see a small tea house nestled among the trees, a modest structure with sliding paper doors and a thatched roof. Its simple elegance inviting you closer. You step onto the wooden veranda, the polished planks cool beneath your bare feet, and you take a moment to absorb the quiet serenity. Inside, the tea house is minimalistic, with a single low table and cushions arranged neatly around it. The space feels designed for calm, no unnecessary decorations, just the gentle glow of a paper lantern hanging from the ceiling. You imagine the soft murmur of voices discussing poetry or the delicate clink of teacups during a slow, deliberate ceremony. Tea ceremonies in Edo, Japan were much more than just drinking tea. They were rituals of mindfulness, where every gesture, from the way the tea was whisked to the placement of each cup, held meaning. The ceremony was a dance of respect, tranquility, and connection to nature. You imagine yourself sitting here, centuries ago, feeling the warmth of the teacup in your hands, the aroma of powdered matcha filling your senses. The taste is rich, slightly bitter, but soothing, grounding you in the moment. Interestingly, historians still debate the exact origins of the tea ceremony's etiquette. Some argue it evolved primarily as a Zen Buddhist practice, while others see it as a cultural refinement that spread from samurai to common folk. Either way, it's clear that the ceremony was designed to slow time down, something you feel very grateful for tonight. A gentle breeze slips through the open door, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. You close your eyes briefly, feeling yourself sink deeper into the peaceful rhythm of the garden. Just outside, a small stone basin filled with water reflects the moonlight. This is the mizusashi, used to replenish the fresh water needed for the tea preparation. The basin's presence reminds you of the meticulous attention given to every detail in these ceremonies. Nothing was left to chance. You notice a tiny frog resting near the basin, its skin glistening softly in the dim light. It blinks slowly, as if acknowledging your presence before disappearing into the shadows. Small creatures like this add a layer of quiet life to the stillness, a gentle reminder that the garden breathes alongside you as you prepare to leave the tea house. Take one last look around, feeling a sense of gratitude for this moment of calm. Tucked away in a world that rarely moves so gently. Asterisk. You step away from the tea house and continue along the garden path, the wooden boards giving way to smooth stones laid with deliberate care. The air is cooler here, carrying the faint scent of damp moss and cedar. You can almost hear the echoes of footsteps from long ago, samurai, merchants, monks' soul who once wandered these same paths, seeking solace or inspiration. The garden opens into a small clearing dominated by a stone pagoda. Its multi-tiered structure reaching upward like a silent guardian of the night. Moss creeps over its base, softening the edges and blending it seamlessly into the natural surroundings. The pagoda's design is simple but elegant, embodying the principle of wabi-sa, the beauty of imperfection and transience. You pause beside the pagoda, feeling the rough stone under your fingertips. It's easy to imagine how this structure served not only as an ornament, but as a symbol of spiritual connection, a bridge between the earthly and the divine. In Edo-period gardens, pagodas were often placed to balance the visual elements and guide the viewer's gaze upward, encouraging contemplation of the sky and beyond. You find yourself looking up through the branches of nearby trees, their silhouettes framing the stars like a delicate lace curtain. The night is still, but there's a gentle rustle as a small family of night birds stirs in the branches above. Their soft calls mingle with the distant sound of water flowing somewhere deeper in the garden, a natural soundtrack that seems composed specifically to soothe the soul. You remember reading that some Edo gardeners carefully selected plants and features to attract certain birds and insects, creating a living orchestra that complemented the garden's visual beauty. It's a subtle touch, but it makes all the difference. The pagoda seems to hold the quiet wisdom of centuries, inviting you to sit on a nearby stone and simply be present. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the night wrap around you like a soft blanket, your breath slowing to match the peaceful rhythm. Historians still debate whether these pagodas had any ritualistic purpose or were purely decorative. But either way, their presence contributes to the garden's layered meanings-age stone, telling a story. Each shadow inviting reflection. You open your eyes and continue on, feeling the weight of the world lighten with each step. The garden's timelessness is contagious, and you sense that in this place, even your thoughts can wander slowly, unhurried and free. As you move forward, the path gently slopes downward, leading you toward a cluster of ancient cherry trees, silent, sentinels awaiting their moment to burst into color once again. For now, their bare branches stretch out like delicate veins against the dark sky, a quiet promise of spring's return. You take a deep breath, savoring the cool night air tinged with earth and wood smoke from distant lanterns. The garden, with its careful balance of nature and design, is a sanctuary for your mind, an invitation to rest and dream. You wander deeper into the shadowed grove, where the cherry trees stand like ancient sentinels, their bare branches knitting intricate patterns against the dark sky. The silence here is almost complete, broken only by the soft crunch of your footsteps on a bed of fallen leaves and the occasional rustle of a nocturnal creature stirring in the underbrush. You pause beneath one tree, imagining its vibrant springtime display clouds of pale pink blossoms that once turned the garden into a fragrant pastel dreamscape. Though the flowers have long since fallen, their presence lingers in the memory of the garden, like a gentle sigh carried on the wind in Edo, Japan. Cherry blossoms symbolized the fleeting nature of life and beauty, celebrated with hanami gatherings, where friends and strangers alike shared sake and poetry under the blooming branches. You picture those scenes, laughter mingling with the rustling petals, the air thick with sweetness and the hum of conversation. But tonight, there's a different kind of beauty. Hear the quiet endurance of these trees through winter's stillness, a reminder that rest is as important as bloom. You notice a weathered wooden bench nearby and decide to sit, feeling the cool wood beneath you. The garden seems to close around you, a cocoon of moss, stone, and branches. A gentle breeze stirs, carrying the subtle scent of pine and earth, mingling with the faint trace of incense from a distant shrine. You think about the gardeners who tended these trees centuries ago. Their work, a blend of art and devotion. They pruned branches carefully, shaped the landscape with an eye for balance, and in doing so, created a living poem, a place where nature and human intention meet. Curiously, historians debate how much of Edo garden design was dictated by strict rules versus spontaneous creativity. Some argue that the gardens were meticulously planned, with every stone and plant placed for symbolic meaning, while others believe the process allowed for more natural evolution and surprise. You feel lucky to be here, caught between those worlds, between deliberate craft and wild growth. Nearby, a small cluster of fireflies begins to flicker faintly, their tiny lights blinking like stars come to rest on Earth. Their soft glow adds a magical touch, as if the garden itself is breathing a gentle lullaby. You watch the fireflies dance for a moment, smiling at their slow, unhurried rhythm. It's the kind of peaceful scene that invites quiet reflection. No need for words, just the soft company of light and shadow as you rise from the bench. You take one last look around, feeling a deep sense of calm settle over you. The garden, with its silent trees and patient stones, has shared a secret that, in stillness, there's a kind of grace. You continue along the path, your steps light and easy, carrying the garden's tranquility with you. You follow the winding stone path as it meanders gently toward the garden's quieter corners, where the trees grow thicker and the shadows deepen. The night air here feels cooler, filled with the earthy scent of damp soil and fallen leaves. Your footsteps fall softly, muffled by moss and grass, as if the garden itself is inviting you to slow down even more. Ahead, you spot a small pond, its surface smooth as glass, reflecting the pale moonlight like a mirror. You walk closer, drawn by the stillness and the faint ripple of water, insects skimming across the surface. The pond is framed by carefully arranged stones and clusters of irises, their slender leaves reaching upward even in the quiet of night. You crouch by the water's edge and peer in catching sight of koi fish lazily circling beneath the surface. Their vibrant colors are muted in the moonlight, but you can see flashes of orange and white as they glide gracefully through the water. The koi seem unbothered by your presence, moving with a slow, deliberate calm that mirrors your own koi ponds. Were a common feature in Edo gardens, symbolizing perseverance and strength. These fish were carefully bred and cherished, often serving as living art pieces. You imagine the gardeners tending to them with the same care given to the plants and stones, nurturing life in all its forms. Historians still discuss whether koi ponds were designed primarily for aesthetic pleasure or held deeper spiritual significance. Some suggest they represented the journey of life swimming upstream against adversity, while others see them as simple delights, offering moments of peaceful observation. You feel a kinship with these fish, both of you moving slowly through a quiet world, appreciating the soft sounds and muted colors of the night. The gentle lapping of water against the stones creates a soothing rhythm, and you let yourself sink into the moment, breathing deeply. The pond seems to hold a kind of magica, quiet reminder that life flows, even when still. A dragonfly buzzes past, its wings catching the moonlight, and you watch it hover briefly before darting off into the darkness. In Edo times, dragonflies were symbols of courage and happiness, often appearing in art and poetry. Seeing one here feels like a small blessing, a sign of the garden's ongoing life. You stand and continue along the path, feeling a sense of renewal, as if the garden has shared a gentle secret about patience and presence. The night stretches on, And you carry this calm with you, stepping softly into the final corners of this peaceful world. The path begins to curve gently upward now, leading you toward the garden's exit. As you walk, you notice the subtle changes, the way the moss thins. The stones become smoother from years of footsteps, and the trees open up just enough to reveal slivers of the waking sky. After sharing its quiet stories, you pause for a moment beside a weathered wooden gate. Its paint faded and peeling, but still standing strong. A humble guardian of this serene space. The gate creaks softly as you push it open, revealing a glimpse of the streets and rooftops beyond. The distant sounds of the city are faint, but they remind you that this peaceful retreat exists as a contrast to the bustle of Edo life. Before you leave, you take a deep breath, savoring the last notes of the garden, the scent of pine and earth, the soft rustle of leaves, the faint hum of insects settling down for the night. It feels like a quiet blessing, a reminder that calm is always within reach, no matter how busy the world may become. You think back to the many elements you encountered, the ancient stones, the silent pine, the gentle koi pond, and the cherry trees waiting patiently for spring. Each one a part of the garden's slow, steady rhythm you've come to share. Historians still debate how much these gardens reflected the ideals of Edo society. Were they escapes from everyday life or reflections of it? Perhaps they were both, places where nature and culture intertwined so seamlessly that the lines between them blurred. As you step out of the garden, the air feels lighter, your mind slower, your breath deeper. You carry with you a quiet sense of gratitude for the patience of the gardeners, the resilience of the plants, and the stillness that welcomed you here. Now, as you settle into your night, let this calm linger, letting your thoughts drift as gently as the breeze through those silent gardens of Edo. Hey, before we wrap up, here's a little something to help you drift off. The garden's quiet has tucked itself around you like a soft blanket, the gentle sounds of nature still echoing faintly in your ears. Your breath is steady, your body relaxed, and the world feels wonderfully distant, like a dream just waiting to unfold. Picture yourself once more beneath those ancient cherry trees, the stars twinkling overhead as you sink deeper into rest. There's no rush, no need to hold on, just the slow, soothing rhythm of this peaceful place carrying you gently toward sleep. Let the calm wash over you, the quiet hum of the garden settling into your bones. You drift away, safe and sound. Sweet dreams.